Okay, a beginner's guide to the specialist economy by Jack of Clubs on the Civ Fanatics forum for Civ 4 Beyond the Sword. In just about every thread in which the topic is discussed, someone asks for a strategy guide to creating a specialist economy. Wodan gives some general principles here. I'll put a link in the video info. But it is still not a step-by-step guide. I do not consider myself an expert, but in attempting to teach myself to master this important style of play, I took several notes from the various threads on this subject and combined them with my own experience, adding a bit of Polish to make them fit for public consumption. I submit them for comments by the true experts. Please note that this thread is an attempt to tell the beginner how to run a specialist economy and therefore assumes that you actually want to try the specialist economy for whatever reason. Maybe you think it is a good strategy, maybe you are bored with your current games and wish to try something new, maybe you think the specialist economy sucks and are just a masochist. I don't care. Just keep the comments helpful and save the advocacy for another thread. The actual guide will be in the second post. Here are some other links that I found helpful in filling in the gaps and getting my thinking in order on the topic. I am Dan the Mansta, Future Hermit, Acid Satyr, Uncle JJ. There are lots more, but I can't remember all of them. A search for threads with specialist economy in the title is a good place to start for more info. I should mention that I don't play the Warlords expansion, so I have limited information on that. Anyone that can make suggestions on that score or on anything else I've left out, please feel free. Definition of specialist economy. A civilization in which the majority of research is funded by scientists specialists supported by 1 to 2 farms or other high food resources. Since this approach tends to generate great scientists more quickly than other economies, another source of research is the light bulb option. Benefits. Optimized regrowth of population from slavery drafting. Note, this sacrifices research until regrowth is complete. Less danger from pillaging since farms are much easier to rebuild than cottages, which have matured to towns. Independence from the science slider increases flexibility to divert commerce directly to gold for upgrades or to culture happiness if the culture slider is used. More effective at higher difficulty levels, Emperor and above. Limitations. It may require more micromanaging compared to a cottage economy. Specialists require supporting food resources or farms. In cases where food resources or fresh water for farms are unavailable, this may be a limitation on early city placement. After civil service, this becomes less of a consideration. Specialists can only be assigned if certain buildings exist, e.g. library enables 2 scientists. And caste system eliminates the restrictions for item 3, the previous item, but conflicts with slavery as well as other labor civics. This may later become critical if emancipation is adopted by another civ, since the unhappiness generated by failing to adopt emancipation can be a serious drain on productivity. General tips and advice. Prioritize food resources and farms in new cities. New cities only need granary, library, and possibly courthouse. Any other buildings are secondary. This doesn't apply to production cities, which will be the same as for the cottage economy. You may drop the science slider to 0 when alphabet has been researched and trade for any text you do not yet know. This is to maximize cash for other purposes, usually military upgrades or high maintenance costs due to conquests. However, it may be wise to keep the science slider up at the maximum that is still generating a positive income for certain critical texts such as literature and the paper education library sequence, if there is no great scientist available for light bulbing these. Alternatively, if dropping the science slider from 100% to 0% results in only a factor of 2 or 3 increase in the number of turns for your current research, current tech, then it is about time to drop it. If it is much more than 3, you probably need to focus on getting more scientists up. Philosophy, paper, and education are prerequisites for liberalism and can be light bulbed by a great scientist. Consider saving a great scientist for 3 for these texts. Pre-game considerations. Leader characteristics. Philosophical is generally considered to be very important for the double great person points and also for the cheaper university. Industrious is a good second choice at lower difficulty levels, but note that you can't be both. For a second trait, spiritual is good for rapid civic shifts. Expansive is good for the health bonus. Creative for the cheaper libraries. And aggressive because of the general synergy between the specialist economy and warfare. See the benefits section above. City order. This guide assumes that the capital city will be used primarily for wealth production to take advantage of the bureaucracy civic. No other city should generate wealth in a specialist economy unless there is no way to farm it, which will be rare, especially post-biology. I generally find it useful to make the second city a production facility and will not found the super science city, which also winds up being a great person farm, unless at least the third city. At higher levels of difficulty, however, it may not be beneficial to build the academy or settled scientists. This is due to the much faster tech rate of the AI and the need to use every scientist to light bulb a tech. So the super science city may not be the way to go at these levels, but that discussion is more appropriate for intermediate and advanced guides. You will probably want at least one other high production city by mid-game and others as necessary. Also, don't get into the mindset that all cities need to be research oriented. The specialist economy is a method of acquiring research in those cities and dedicated to the task, but Civ 4 is a game of balance and trade-offs. This isn't limited to the specialist economy, but the lesson to bear in mind is not to sacrifice military preparedness for research. The following age-by-age guidelines are offered as a preliminary base for experimentation. Obviously, any of the recommendations made can be rebutted, but I prefer to err on the side of structure versus flexibility, since too many options can be confusing to a novice. Once people have tried the recommended format, they will be in a position to decide for themselves what works for their style of gameplay. I have used the following principles in determining how many great scientists should be settled versus used to light bulb technologies. Based on Future Hermit's analysis, there are no settled great scientists listed in the classical era because you are still setting up libraries and the great person farm. The first spare great scientist is used for the academy, and each era gets another settled scientist. The exception is the industrial age, in which scientific method eliminates the two free scientists from the Great Library. So an additional park scientist is added in that era. The objective is to sustain a rate of science with an average of 5 turns per tech. This requires either the addition of settled scientists or an increased number of cities with 2 or more specialists each. Note that some people object to settling any scientist or building an academy, preferring to use great scientists solely for light bulbing techs. The rationale is that although the former use produces more total research over time, light bulbing produces the techs earlier, which can be more important. I consider this to be more of an intermediate or advanced topic, but I note it here so that the beginner will be aware of the issue. Advocates for the light bulb theory admit that the specialist economy tends to falter after the late Renaissance or early industrial eras, about the time democracy and scientific method start eroding some of the specialist economy friendly benefits. My intention in this guide is to provide a long-term strategy for specialist economy that is sustainable throughout even a long game. But I must also note that these advocates are also much more experienced than I, so at least be aware of the controversy. Also, at higher difficulties, the light bulb method may be the only way to stay competitive. But again, that is an intermediate or advanced consideration. Classical Age. Research priorities: masonry, writing, alphabet, literature, maybe polytheism, maybe meditation. Build priorities: libraries, maybe monasteries. Optional number of science cities: 3, including the super science city. Scientists per city: 2 in the classical age. The super science city should have the Great Library, and your wonder priorities should be the Great Library, maybe the Pyramid, maybe the Parthenon. I would say the Parthenon probably should go in a city other than the one you want to generate great scientists at, if you want to keep your specialist pool purely on the science. Civic priorities: representation. That would be through the pyramids. Pyramids is somewhat optional, and many feel that the time spent on building this wonder can be better used to expand your empire. Likewise with the Parthenon. I recommend building these, but you may need to reconsider if stone or marble is not near the capital. The Great Library, however, is very important and is usually achievable, but is much more valuable if you have access to representation for the pyramids. I put a question mark by monasteries, since they may not be possible to build if you didn't found a religion. This period should be characterized by expansion more than research. Medieval Age. Research priorities: meditation, code of laws, civil service. Build priorities in the medieval age: libraries and monasteries. Optional number of science cities: 6, including your super science city. Scientists per city: 2 plus. The library allows 2. Caste system allows indefinite. Your super science city has the Great Library, an academy, and 1 settled great scientist by this time. Wonder priorities: academy. Civic priorities: representation, caste system, and bureaucracy. There is some debate as to whether caste system is more beneficial than slavery. I include the former since slavery is not specific to the specialist economy, but use your own judgment here. Make sure that you have at least 6 libraries by the end of this period. This figure includes extra cities to prepare for building Oxford in Renaissance, which requires 6 universities, which in turn cannot be built in a city without a library. The Renaissance Age. Research priorities are education, liberalism, astronomy, probably for the observatories, and banking. Build priorities, university and observatory. Yep. Optimal number of science cities are 4, including the super science city. Scientists per city, 3 plus. The super science city has a great library, an academy, 2 settled great scientists, and Oxford. Your wonder priority is the national wonder, Oxford. Civic priorities are representation, caste system, bureaucracy, and mercantilism. Mercantilism is also controversial, but is included here for a similar reason to caste system, reasons that was noted under caste system. Mercantilism gives you an extra specialist, which would be science specialists. The usual caveats apply. You need 6 universities to build Oxford, which will use the extra cities built in the medieval period. Also, if you don't have a reliable source of copper for the Statue of Liberty in the next era, this would be a good time to start thinking about capturing one. Statue of Liberty will also give you an extra specialist in your cities. Industrial Age. Research priorities, democracy, physics, biology. Build priorities. Optimal number of science cities are 6 in the industrial age, including the super science city. Scientists per city is 5 plus. Super Science City has the Great Library, probably expired by that time. Academy, 4 settled great scientists, and Oxford. Wonder priorities are the Statue of Liberty. Civic priorities are representation, caste system, bureaucracy, and mercantilism. The Statue of Liberty is huge, unless you are on an archipelago map, so make sure you get it. This is doubly important since you lose the Great Library about this time due to scientific method. The Modern Age. Research priorities are computers, that's fiber optics, maybe fiber optics. Build priorities are laboratory, that'll let you run more great scientists. Optimal number of science cities are 8, including the super science city. The scientists per city is 6 plus. The super science city has an academy, 5 settled great scientists by the modern age, and Oxford. Wonder priorities, maybe the internet. Civic priorities, representation, caste system, bureaucracy, mercantilism. This error is a bit less well researched since many specialist economy games have been won by this point. I will update this if anyone has any further suggestions. Sample games, Frederick ALC Prince, LOTR 18, No Cottage Challenge Prince, Louis XIV Monarch, Isabella No Cottages Emperor, Saladin No Cottages Immortal. The following threads posts were invaluable in forming my early version of this guide. The discussion thread for this guide can be found here, and he gives a list. I'll try and link a lot of this stuff in the discussion thread for this guide. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.